Welcome to the M&A Unplugged podcast. Our mission is to help you be better prepared for your business acquisition or sale. Being prepared will ensure you maximize returns and minimize risks. This is M&A Unplugged with your host, Domenic Rinaldi.
Hey folks, welcome back to the M&A Unplugged podcast. I'm your host, Domenic Rinaldi, in what is going to be the last episode of 2020. What a year it's been. Can't even begin to recount the ups and downs that we've experienced, that our clients have experienced, that we've seen in the marketplace. What is there to say about this year? It's been unlike any year. Luckily and thankfully and gratefully for our firm, this has been our best year ever on record, shattering what was a record year last year. And for those of you that are wondering, how could that possibly be given what's gone on, the M&A market, as I've discussed in previous segments, has remained incredibly resilient. And we are very grateful for this success in, like I said, what has been the craziest year that I can remember. And I would have never thought that anything would rival the Great Recession of 2008. And our podcast has continued to flourish and grow thanks to all of you in the audience who tune in and the growing number of folks who are finding our podcast, and to the guests that have been a part of our journey. And we're really thankful to all of you. And hopefully we're delivering on the promise that we had. And remembering back when we started M&A Unplugged, we really started this podcast with the hope of helping people be better prepared for their transactions. Because over my decades of doing deals, the one thing that people really fail to do, whether they're buying or selling, is do the proper preparation. They may do part of it, they may do half of it, but they don't do and stay focused on all of the things that will lead to the best outcome with minimal risks. And so in that regard, I want to end this episode with as good a feel-good story about deal preparation as I can possibly think of. It's rare. We don't typically see that folks do all the preparation and take the time, but I'm going to talk about a client that we represented and brought to market this year, and he had a tremendous outcome. And you'll hear when I get into the story that he took time to really do all the things that he needed to do, which, going back to some of the earlier episodes this year, I've talked about our new firm, K2 Advisor, which we started earlier this year with the sole focus of helping people get prepared for their transaction. And when they are ready, hopefully using Sun Acquisitions, our deal firm, to then bring them to market to either buy or sell a business. But before I get into today's episode and I talk about this story, I would love to hear from all of you. We're dedicated to bringing you great and actionable content about mergers and acquisitions. So to that extent, if you have a topic that you'd like us to cover, something that we haven't discussed so far, please let us know. If there's a guest that you think would be a great addition to the lineup that we brought you, love to hear about that. Or if there's any other sort of feedback that would help us bring you better content, I'd love to hear it. Please feel free to send that feedback directly to me at drinaldi@sunacquisitions.com. I really want to hear your feedback and how we can continue to improve the show. Thank you again for being here, and hope you enjoy this story of how preparation can make all the difference. So getting into the story, I first met the owner of this business, Rick Lavin, probably a little over 6 years ago. And Rick had started this business probably 15, 16 years ago. And he built a business that provides disaster recovery for the banking industry. So think about a branch location in a banking industry. And if that branch goes down, for any number of reasons. It could be because they're doing a rehab of the branch and that branch is going to be offline for a couple of months, or there's been a hurricane or a flood or some other disaster and that branch location is going to be down. Rick and his company, Recovery Solutions, provide a mobile banking unit that can do as little as provide an ATM experience or as much as actually provide full tellers. And it's a mobile unit that they'll bring to wherever the disaster has occurred, and they'll put that mobile unit up. It's got all of the proper technology and encryption and cybersecurity technology that's needed to get that bank up and running in a secure way. And when we first met Rick 6 years ago, we did an analysis on his business, and we spent a couple of weeks learning everything we could about the business, breaking down the financials, really diving in and trying to understand what Rick was doing. And Rick wasn't certain at the time that he wanted to sell. He had a number in mind, and it certainly, if we had hit the number at that time, he was ready to go to market. We did the analysis, we presented it to Rick, and at the end of the analysis, he said, "This is great, but this is not my number. My number needs to be probably double this in order for it to make sense for me to move forward." And it was great because Rick wasn't under any pressure to sell the business. He was having fun. He was still growing the business, and there was still plenty of upside in the business. And so he had the time to really sit back and ask all the right questions. Where am I deficient? How could I grow? Are there things in the operation of the business that I can improve? And so we went through every piece of the business and worked it through with Rick to identify where the areas of opportunity were to improve value. Of course, we started with the financials. How could he improve some of the financial performance? Where would he need to be on an adjusted EBITDA basis in order to ultimately get to where he wanted to be? But there were operational things, things like what the tax ramifications were going to be upon sale and how he could improve that situation. Contracts, how he was drafting and writing the contracts, whether or not they were going to be easily transferable to a new owner. Margins, the velocity of his clients, the length of the client contracts that he had. And so we broke down all of these areas. And so when we were done with that analysis, Rick went on his way, and we agreed to stay in touch. And here's what unfolded. From that point forward, pretty much about the same time every year, we'd touch base with Rick. We'd sit down. We'd do a snapshot again of where the business was at so he could get a sense of what was going on. He'd give us an update on the business and the things that he's done to improve value, whether it was employees or the contracts or his operations or his units, total number of clients. And we'd do a new snapshot and give him a rough sense of where the new value was. And this went on for pretty much 6 years. And every year we do the same thing and sit down with Rick and we'd go through it and he'd be like, "Wow, this is great. Still not my number." And we were like, "Okay, great. That's fine. It's perfectly fine that it wasn't his number," but he had the roadmap on what to do to get to his number. And I really think this is illustrative of what I talk about in many of the episodes. What my guests talk about is preparation takes time, and it's not going to happen overnight. And you're going to have ups and downs in preparing. You could take 2 steps forward, take a step backwards. And so understanding what you can do and how you can get your arms around your business to improve value early gives you the opportunity to fix all of those things and maximize the value so that when you are ready, you've got a business that you know you've done everything you can with to get it to maximum value, that you know when you transfer it to a new owner, there's going to be minimal risks for them and for you. And so, Rick, religiously every year, went through this process. And then lo and behold, at the end of last year, we did the same analysis. And we're like, okay, let's see, maybe this is the year. And Rick was hopeful that maybe this was the year. And sure enough, we did the analysis. He had really improved the operations. And when we did the final value opinion, we were very close to the number that Rick needed in order to move away. And so we had a longer conversation about what it would look like to go to market, who we thought the prospective buyers were, what the market was like at the time. And at the end of last year, the market was incredibly frothy. I mean, there were a tremendous number of buyers in the marketplace. Interest rates were still low, lots of transactions happening. And so that, in combination with a value opinion that looked like we were at the number, Rick agreed, okay, we're ready to go. Let's take this thing to market and let's see if I can go get this done and then move on and go pursue some other interests that he really wanted to do, but was willing to put in the work to make sure that his business got to the point where it made sense for him. I'll give you the rest of the story. I'm going to condense it because I'm going to have Rick on the show at some point in time, and I want him to talk about his experience and what he went through. But in essence, once we knew Rick was ready to go, we packaged up the business. We built all the marketing materials. We identified all the prospective buyers that we thought would be a good fit for the business. And we got ready and we went out to market, and we hit the market. I think somewhere probably around March of this past year, 2020. And we went out proactively calling all of the targets that we had, identifying people. We also will market the business through third-party channels. So we'll get inbound inquiries from folks that we don't know. But the buyers that really came to the table were the folks that we had identified early on in the target list, through direct outreach to them and seeing if they were in acquisition mode, brought them to the table. Fast forward, Rick had 5 offers to consider. We had hit the mark on his value right out of the gates as soon as we started to receive offers, and through a negotiation process, happily for Rick, he was able to get overvalue for his business because there was so much interest in his business because he had built a great business. He had client contracts. He had recurring revenue. He had really paid attention to a lot of the details to get his business to operate in a way that buyers were going to covet. And so kudos to him. I mean, we were lucky to be introduced to Rick and have the opportunity to handle this transaction for him. But he had a great business. We were able to cultivate the market, bring him a ton of buyers. He got multiple offers, got a great outcome, and sold the business. And I think the transaction took 5.5 months to get closed. And he couldn't be happier. And he's in transition with the deal right now, working through all the things that he needs to work through. And then it'll be interesting to see what the next phase is going to be, for Rick. But he's incredibly happy. He got the number he wanted. Took him time. I mean, it took him 6 years. He was patient. It didn't happen overnight, but he got what he needed. And what a great outcome. And folks, I can't stress enough how the fact that he was willing to look at it early and do the work and not wait until he was really ready to get out of the business gave him the opportunity to clean up a bunch of stuff and make for a great transaction and a great transition. And I stress that if you own a business, that you do the same thing. Get your arms around what you have, understand the value, understand what drives value for your business, where the gaps are, how you can improve the value, and then go take the time to work it and improve all of those things so that when you are ready, you know that you're going to walk away with maximum dollars. And for buyers, same thing. It's no different if you're a buyer in the marketplace. Doing your homework ahead of time, which entails a ton of things, believe it or not, having your team in place, having your debt facilities in place, really honing in on what type of business you want to acquire, whether you own a company and you want to add something in, or you're an investor and it's going to be your first investment. Doing all that preparation really matters. And we spend a lot of time on the K2 advisor side, helping people understand what preparation looks like so that when they are ready to do the transaction, they've got the peace of mind to go get a transaction done and know that they're going to maximize their value and minimize their risks. I hope all of you have a tremendous holiday season, and I wish you nothing but the best in the new year. All of the information in today's episode will be available in the show notes. If you enjoy our content, please remember to subscribe and review our podcast. I look forward to seeing you again on the next episode of the M&A Unplugged podcast. And until then, please remember that scaling, acquiring, or selling a business takes time, preparation, and the proper knowledge.